You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Marina Buksov, and I'm a functional medicine pharmacist in New York. I'm also a clinical herbalist and an integrative health coach specializing in mindfulness and empowerment. I'm on a mission to transform the way we approach healthcare by bridging the wisdom of traditional medicine with modern practice. And in this podcast, I will be highlighting guests who do just that. I'm constantly inspired by them, and I know you will be as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have an amazing guest in store today. She's my friend, and we went to herbal school together. So her name is Aviva Tilson, and she's the founder of Apis Apotheca, which she began 8 years ago when combining her experience with organic farming, herbalism, and a desire to resolve lifelong skin issues. She specializes in sensitive eczema and acne-prone skin and continues to delve into the complexity of managing skin issues in the context of autoimmunity. Her products are poems that arose from the inspiration of her garden and the desire to show an example of a heart-centered business that is full circle and has a basis in regenerative agriculture. Her line has helped thousands of people around the globe heal their skin and feel closer to nature in the process. So huge welcome to the show, Aviva.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so what an amazing bio and everything that you've achieved over the last 8 years. And I think it's such an important topic, every area that I just touched on in your bio. So let's start at the beginning about how this idea was all born. What in your childhood or in your schooling has inspired you to even get on this herbal journey?
Sure. So mainly, I think a lot of healers kind of end up where they are because they're not well, growing up. So I was no exception. I had a lot of health problems as a child that were not diagnosed, and the main one being celiac. So it wasn't until I was 19 when I broke my foot just by tripping. And my doctor at the time, her husband happened to be a leading celiac gastroenterologist. And she was like, I'm just going to send you over to my husband because this seems a little weird for a 19-year-old to have broken her foot just from tripping. And so thank God I broke my foot because I would have probably waited so much longer to be diagnosed. But I had no vitamin D in my body, no nutrients, one of the most crazy cases of celiac he'd ever seen. So, I mean, of course, since I grew up with serious gut problems, skin is so directly connected to that. So I was always trying to figure out what was going on because I would break out a lot, and it really takes its toll, especially on a teenager, a young adult. It really takes a mental toll on your self-confidence. So that's kind of how it all came about. And then I also just have a kind of natural proclivity for growing things, for being outside, for farming. So it kind of all rolled into itself into one big snowball over the years.
Yeah, that's a crazy journey. I think most of us can relate about having somebody in our family or ourselves or some kind of journey where it triggers us, and it probably is not pleasant in the moment, but it's probably also a teaching opportunity, and it allows you to avoid bigger mistakes or even worse prognoses and diagnoses down the line. So I love that you're kind of seeing this as a blessing in disguise and setting you to where you need to be. But it also brings up the issue of why are so many people underdiagnosed, and not diagnosed at the right time or earlier on. And also the connection between gut and skin and really all areas of our health. But do you have any comments on that connection specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think people growing up now are a little luckier in terms of like access to the internet and, functional medicine. I think like for a lot of millennials, like growing up in the early 90s, it was just no one had any idea what any of that was. Like I think our parents did their best, but like it's just like, here's another antibiotic. So I think, yeah, I think that's kind of what happened with me is my parents probably did their best and it just, it missed the shot. But I think that like today, there's just so much we can access at our fingertips if you are curious. Like I still constantly research health stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like still constantly reading medical journals. Like it becomes an obsession, but that's also just what I'm interested in naturally. So I think like luckily today, if you really have the desire to get to the bottom of it, like you can without the help necessarily of an MD. Depends on the MD, there's some really wonderful ones out there. And I feel like the advent of functional medicine is like a huge leap forward. But that's typically where I push people now when they come to me with health problems, on like a off the record basis is like, I just try and get them to like Google what is functional medicine,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just really as a quick aside, if somebody listening out there is wondering, oh, maybe I'm celiac, like what are the signs and symptoms that you should be aware of so they can go and get tested?
Yeah, I mean, it can be so many different things. But, the really clear ones that I remember growing up was like just constant stomach aches. Like it just was normal because I never knew anything else. So it was just like constantly bloated, constant stomach aches, like, skin really kind of breaking out a lot. I was like really underweight. Like really pale. I was always really tired. Like I remember my grandma being like, why is she so tired? Why is this 16-year-old so exhausted? So like I feel like there's so many things that can make you tired today that aren't necessarily celiac. But there's some pretty clear things, I think, like just physical inflammation level wise that can point you in the direction, not necessarily even of celiac, but just any gut problem that needs to be addressed. Because the gut is the root of all health or illness in some ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you're not celiac, there can be a spectrum of gluten sensitivity. So if you try eliminating it and then re-challenging it in a few weeks, that could give you some obvious signs and symptoms of inflammation there. Or if you're noticing like every time after a meal with gluten that you're always tired, like these are kind of things, or bloated and other kinds of symptoms that it's just not normal. Like we may have interpreted as a culture that it's normal to feel this way after eating and it's normal to always be tired, but that's not true. And so when you take the steps to either see a practitioner or experiment on your own based on all the internet stuff, you can really see that it doesn't have to be that way, and in fact it should not be that way. And if you are feeling that way, then there's some deeper digging to do to understand why that is for you.
Yeah, totally.
So Aviva, for you, what made you take the leap into investing in your educational journey into studying clinical herbalism and then also into starting your own farm? I mean, like, I feel it's a big step. Each of those things is a big step.
Yeah. I mean, I'd been farming even in college. I started a farm at the college I went to, and then like took a semester off to farm all over the place. And then right after graduating, went right into this apprenticeship program at a farm called Hawthorne Valley, which is like kind of a very famous like biodynamic farm. And so like I knew that I needed to do that in some capacity. It just felt right. But I was more interested in like the herbs or the weeds growing in the pathways, than I was like in the vegetables themselves. So it was just a very natural, like following my intuition kind of thing, like it just happened on its own because I was so determined to solve my own problems. Wasn't getting any help from anybody, including lots of like well-meaning, but not very good naturopaths or, like there's a lot of practitioners who I've seen in the past who just didn't really get it, So I think like I really had to figure it out. And I knew that a part of that healing path for me, I feel like probably for everybody, is just like, spending time in direct connection with nature. So
Yeah, I think it's part of that blessing and a curse thing that we were talking about earlier. It's like, yeah, if there's not many solutions or answers out there that are working for you, it does require you to go and solve them on your own. And so you can rise up to the challenge, right? And that's what you have chosen to do. But still, I feel like it's not very intuitive in today's day and age with all the technology and us being on screens all the time to talk about things like, okay, I'm following my calling or my intuition, or like I can go and start my own farm. So like, what gave you that motivation and that confidence to do that?
I don't know. I think this was like my dharma. This is, I think, kind of just what I'm meant to do. That's just how my brain is wired. I just didn't see any other alternative.
So what were like some examples of how you came to find out that, being closer to nature is helping me, and there's something to these weeds and I want to keep digging and exploring further. Can you give us some insight to like what was going on for you and what you were thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I think like being raised in like a city with like, kind of a more like unstable family life, like I think my nervous system really needed something super stable and calming. So I think like getting out into the garden or whatever farm I was working on was the first thing I'd ever found that like really deeply nourished my nervous system. And I think it's something that I still work on to this day when I am like on the computer too much, or if I'm like running around doing other things too much. It's like, just go weed the garden for like an hour. And like, no matter what, I'll feel so much better afterwards. I think it's just like giving yourself like time to like unplug in today's world and just focus on like one thing, like with your hands. Like I feel like potters talk about that a lot. Like anybody who kind of works with like a physical medium. I mean, it's meditation. It's a meditation. That's really what it is. Like I'm not good at like sitting and like meditating, but like garden meditating is really what like nourishes me. And so I think I also just naturally came into the world wanting to like help other people. Like, I don't know if you like, I'm sure you're also an astrology girl. I have a lot in the 6th house, like tons and tons of 6th house in my chart. So I think like service is like a big thing. And so anytime I'm like, weeding the garden and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this dandelion or I'm going to get this or that. Like I'm still thinking in the back of my head, like, oh, like this would really help my friend who has this problem. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a constant like stream of consciousness diagnose like train going in my head. And I don't know, I just maybe like really love solving problems. So I don't know if that was a long-winded answer, but
Yeah, I love that. I think it's something you alluded to earlier too. So this could be like a form of a healthy obsession, right? When you're obsessed with solving problems or having a service and it's not detrimental to you, then it's all good. And this brings up, I think, a question that maybe a lot of people may have out there. I know I do, where starting something new, especially when it hasn't been passed down in your lineage or your family, like, if you didn't grow up on a farm or didn't have people in your life that did this, that you can learn from, it can seem like a huge risk to go and start something where, it depends on the weather and the season. And it, I don't know, like in terms of like stability and predictability, what your thoughts are on this. And, there's a lot of different perspectives on nothing is really stable, right? But like for people out there that may yearn for some kind of homesteading, right, that has also become more popular nowadays, but are really afraid to like go take those steps, what would you say to them based on your experience?
Yeah, I would say go work on someone else's farm for a season if you're serious about it. There's all of these websites out there that there's woofing, you can like travel around the world on different farms for free, basically. There's this website called Atra, ATTRA, that has apprenticeships at farms all over the world, or maybe it's just the US. But anyway, there's so many databases that connect you with farmers who need help. And the only way to really learn it is to learn from someone who knows what they're doing, and then keep making your own mistakes year after year until you figure it out. Like, I think that's how I've done it. It's like farming and growing anything is like a lifelong art that you have to learn. And it's like, you're never done. It's like, that's partly what's like exciting about it, because every year I'm like, oh, like that really worked. And like, that really didn't. Like, oh, look at these beds. They're so much better than they were 5 years ago. And so that's really satisfying, but it is like just kind of an esoteric art that you have to like gradually figure out. So I think fast tracking it, if you're really serious about homesteading, is like go work on someone else's farm for a little while.
Yeah, such a good answer. Like, find somebody who is already having success in this and try to mentor with them and become an apprentice. And we used to do a lot more of this. Now it's more like didactic and degrees. And then when you're out there on the field with a degree, it may not even be applicable to what you're trying to do. So I think that's super important, is the experiential, hands-on part of it. And then that's what makes your body feel confident, right? Once you realize, again, with the nervous system, that, okay, this is safe and I can do this and I can figure it out, rather than even like affirmations or mental, like you said, meditation. I think like just doing it somatically with your body and having like a moving meditation, like your body naturally then will regulate itself and tell your nervous system that, okay, I can do this, right? Cool. So let's go back to the skin and gut connection. You kind of said, oh, this is so obvious, but can you tell us a little bit more about how they're connected and then how your company is addressing this connection?
Yes. So, I mean, your gut is like really the conductor for your whole body in many ways. And so skin is kind of like a canary in the coal mine in my experience. With gut issues. So if there's gut permeability, if there's allergies, if there's celiac, if there's just any type of kind of like inflammation or imbalance or overgrowth of anything, that's really where you look. If you have clients coming to you with acne, with psoriasis, with eczema, like the very, very first thing I think, in my opinion, you would look at is your gut. So I don't sell internal products. So I can't, I'm not directly obviously affecting the gut in that way, but I do kind of try to educate people as much as I can through Instagram and my website about what I think is the best way to keep your gut healthy. And the products are really geared towards reducing inflammation and balancing the microbiome. Like, there's things we can do on the surface of the skin that kind of mitigate some of the inflammatory cascades that happen if there are imbalances in the rest of the body. And so, I mean, I have like hundreds of reviews at this point of like people who like, maybe we all do have kind of a little bit of a gut problem, but if you are buffering that, at skin level with kind of clamping down on the stress response in the skin, like you can do a lot to mitigate other issues.
Yeah, definitely a great point there. And like mentioning the microbiome, we're finding that microbiome doesn't just live in your gut. It's kind of in all areas of your body, including the skin. And so, it kind of all has to do with one another. So the healthier you can make your internal microbiome in the gut, in the right places of the gut, with the diversity that is needed to keep it healthy, that actually translates to transferring it to other areas. And then sometimes if you are messing it up with your skin routine, it can also wreak havoc. So what do you see as like the biggest problem? What do people get wrong in their skin routine that maybe causes an imbalance?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like kind of cleansers, toners out there that are just like not the right pH, or they're stripping your skin. Like your skin is like a really kind of delicately balanced like layer cake of things. There's like old cells that kind of act as like a protective shield. There's lipids, there's like, there's cholesterol, there's all these little like natural moisturizing factors, and there's an acid mantle. And so our products, I think, are really successful at maintaining the skin's natural barrier function. And I think that like more and more people know that term recently, like barrier function. And I think what we want to do is make sure that like the balance is just maintained. So I think there's a lot of products out there, especially kind of like old school products that are like acids, like exfoliants, like anything that you're like stripping a layer off or like scrubbing a layer off, like your skin's going to pay for it. And it's going to make inflammation much, much worse. So our focus is really on just like keeping the pH of the skin balanced, making sure that you're lifting away the kind of used up, like kind of stickier sebum that your skin is done with, and removing it, but not stripping the skin. And then giving it back the fats with herbs infused into them, that will really feed it and keep it healthy.
Yeah, amazing. And of course, there's also antibiotics and very harsh chemicals that are also prescribed, like benzoyl peroxide and salicylic acid. Yeah. That
Old school acne treatments are like, yes, of course. Yes, you're totally right. Old school acne treatments are like so crazy for your skin's barrier. Like, and I've been there. It's like all of us, for the most part, have gone through that dark night. But yes, the more you can avoid those, the better. And yeah.
So let's say somebody, was not educated and they just follow their doctor's advice. The doctors prescribe them these things. How do we start to rebalance the skin if they've been on antibiotics? Maybe they've been on vitamin A analogs like retinoids. And what is your opinion and stance on retinoids too? Because I feel like this is very controversial as well.
I think like topical, you mean, right? I feel like
no for oral, like do not do oral.
Right. Yeah, please. Right. I think, it's to each their own. I think there's certain formulations out there now that are definitely like very highly evolved compared to like the old school burn your face off retinoid, like I think probably like prescription retinoids are still maybe a little too powerful for most people. But then again, I work with a lot of holistic estheticians. They're super divided on this. Like, I don't even feel comfortable like saying yes or no to them anymore. I think like if you have certain skin goals that you're trying to reach and you're making sure that you're protecting your skin, if you are using them, like go for it, and like pick one that is like much gentler. I personally don't like use them very much at all, almost ever. I think I tried one like recently. I was like, meh. I think there's other ways you can encourage skin turnover. And I also prefer to get my vitamin A like in the form of like concentrated like animal internal things. Cause I think like if you have like a good serum level of vitamin A in your body, like it's gonna reflect in your skin. So I really like this fish egg supplement, which I can plug. It's the fish eggs from Ancestral Supplements, which I really love. But apart from that, where were we? What else did you ask?
Well, let's stick to the internal for a quick second. So what are your top tips for keeping your gut healthy and keeping your skin healthy internally? What could you do or take?
Great. Okay. So I feel like there's no one size fits all, but I think general rules, I think are the basics, like sugar, quickly, sugar spiking, white flour, starch products. I mean, I think like basic stuff is totally fine to start with. I think like keeping an eye on blood sugar regulation is pretty huge. Anytime you spike your blood sugar, that's going to spike your hormones, your stress hormones, which increases testosterone, which then spikes DHT, and then DHT is what converts the testosterone into the more powerful form that starts the whole process of acne forming. So I think, like, you know, making sure your blood sugar is under control. There's like a million resources out there now to do that. I really like having like a little apple cider vinegar before I eat, personally. So that's a good start. I think incorporating fermented foods, as long as you don't have SIBO, is a great thing to do. I personally really love, you know, like kimchi, sauerkraut, and then also in my own healing journey, kefir, homemade kefir was very important. I go on and off of that though, because it's like very labor intensive sometimes to make. I mean, it's not, but it's just, it becomes a lot. So I think fermented foods are a huge thing. If you don't like making fermented foods, there are better and better probiotics out there, but I just haven't like really been doing the capsule thing for a long time, but I know they're there. Even those two things alone, and then the fish eggs, I feel like it's a great start. It's a really great start. And increasingly, like, fiber is something that not that many people talk about yet, but fiber is so important, especially for hormonal acne. Just because it like soaks up all of the xenoestrogens and all the estrogens you don't need, like a sponge, and like fully excretes them. So soluble fiber is like really almost every single woman's best friend, I think, in the modern world. And I notice personally, you know, if I'm like not eating my beans, it starts to show. So beans, probiotics, balancing your blood sugar, even those three things alone is like, you'll see so much of a difference.
Yeah, I think that it really is a great starting point. You know, keeping your gut lining healthy, anti-inflammatory diet, maybe some bone broth is another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Having those fat soluble vitamins, like you mentioned, A, D, E, and K, which have some common sources that have all of them, like cod liver, which again, many people may not find palatable. I actually like eating it. And I actually like eating fish roe if you can get some healthy fish nowadays. That's an option. Yeah.
I think one other thing that I've thought about a lot recently is your nervous system. I think like it's so easy to be dysregulated and to discount how severe an effect that can have on your skin. Because like our skin is like a sensory, it's like a stress sensitive organ. Like it is so intimately connected to your stress levels. So I think like for many years I was like, I'm fine. And like, I would do all the health stuff. Like I would be so good. And then I would still break out because I was just so tense, you know, and like so hard on myself and like just overworking. And I think like, it's only kind of pretty recent that it's like, oh, like nothing will work. Nothing will work if you're stressed out all the time. So I think everybody does have to find the thing that works for them, because your body cannot heal in sympathetic state in the flight, you know, you have to be parasympathetic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an impossible goal to say, like, I'm going to reduce my stress, you know, to a minuscule level. Like stress is going to be a part of your life no matter what, but we can regulate our responses to it. So I think that's the important thing, and to have tools for that. And then the other thing you mentioned is like the hormonal aspect, which I think many people do know about. And that's why people are put on birth control to try to control their acne. But then some birth controls are going to be like androgenic, or they're going to just stimulate even more skin issues. So we go for the anti-androgenic ones, but that's really, in my opinion, not a good long-term solution, if at all. You know, I would prefer people try other stuff first and really just get to the root causes, like you were saying. And so the beans may not only provide the fiber, they also probably some phytoestrogenic sources, along with some other plants, right, that we can name, that will actually help manage and regulate the amount of estrogens that we are exposed to, that we should not be getting exposed to due to our environment.
Right. Yeah. And for sure. And anybody who thinks that they have more kind of androgenic bends to their hormones, like there are a lot of plants out there that are pretty well proven to work to lower lower that or lower at least the conversion from testosterone to DHT. So like spearmint, reishi, saw palmetto, like those are like the three big ones that can really help with, especially like kind of PCOS acne that is more androgen driven.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's now get into the topicals and maybe some of your product suites. Like why did you create them and what problems are they addressing and what herbs do they have?
Yeah. Well, like I feel like it's kind of like my capsule line that's still going strong. I relaunched in 2020 or 18, I'm forgetting now, with 6 core products that to this day are still kind of like the ones that sell the best, that the most people use every single day. And so the line starts with a cleanser called Golden Milk. And it's cool because it kind of functions like an oil cleanser, but it rinses clean. So like it's a solid balm and you rub your face around with it on dry skin. And it has a combination of turmeric and cardamom, so it really kind of smells like a golden milk latte. And then it really gives you a chance to like get into all of the nooks and crannies of your face. And like then because face massage is so important for everybody every single day. It's like you're regulating your nervous system, you're also stimulating collagen when you're massaging your face, you're helping dislodge like stuck sebum plugs. So you do that for a while with it on dry skin, and then you moisten your hands and it becomes a milk and it rinses clean. So it's one of our all-time bestsellers. And it's just super non-stripping. And it just, like I said, I think becomes like a really nice calming ritual for people. I personally didn't really like washing my face for a long time. I mean, it's hard to find the right cleanser, I think, one that feels like nice to use. And I think, we hit on that balance. And I think a lot of people agree. So that's like kind of a non-negotiable first step. Everybody needs to wash their face properly. And then we move to like the water steps in the line. Because your skin needs both water and fat, with the water kind of layered underneath the fat. So next in line, right after cleansing, there's Flower Sap and there's Alchemist. The Alchemist is a rotating seasonal hydrosol that we distill ourselves from our plants in like a big copper still. And we combine it with a couple of actives like vitamin B3 and N-acetylglucosamine. So altogether, that helps balance your skin's pH. And it also helps regulate just like the barrier function, overall barrier function and wound healing capacity of your skin. So you can use that as your water step. You could use that or Flower Sap or both. It depends on what you want that day. It depends on the weather. It depends on your hormones. It just depends on, like, the line really helps you learn your skin, kind of. I think that's what people have noticed is like, oh, it's like super humid out, so maybe I just need Alchemist and a light oil. Or like in the winter, maybe I need something a little richer. So if you need something a little richer, Flower Sap, which is our all-time bestseller, it's like a milky, light hydrating lotion made with groundwell root that we grow on our farm, pure rose water, aloe, a proprietary seaweed extract that we make. It's like just super feather light, but super hydrating. And it can be layered with any of the oils or balms in our line or used by itself as a light lotion. But I really love following up cleansing with that and then choosing one of the more fat-based things to finish off. So then there's a few different balms. There's honey mallow, which is great for eczema, psoriasis. It has like raw honey that we infuse with oil, with herbs blended into it. There's resin, which is our essential oil-free oil serum. And it has whole frankincense resin infused into it. So it's super anti-inflammatory. And Dragon Balm, which is very popular with more mature skin. It has like more of a velvet skin feel, and it has this stuff called Dragon's Blood sap blended into it, which is a tree sap from South America. And it's kind of like a panacea of skin healing and collagen production and all that. And more recently, I launched a couple of masks, which are cool. They're like kind of a newer category of like functionality because they're whole ground herbs from the farm. So they're like perfectly kind of encapsulated herbs from our farm. And then you activate it, each like little serving, with moisture, whether it's water or hydrosol, whatever you want. And it becomes like a mousse, so you're getting both the oil and water soluble components of the herbs. So it's like really like being able to like take a handful of fresh herbs from the garden basically and grind them up and like use them right then. But it's, you can keep it forever. So yeah, let's see. What did I leave out? Do you have any questions before I ramble on?
Yeah, let's say like somebody wants to try out a product and they have like specific issues. Like, how do they know which product they should start off with?
Yeah. So on our website, there's a page that has product recommendation combinations for like different skin types and concerns. And there's also like very lengthy product descriptions that I should probably update someday, but they are very descriptive. So most people seem to be able to kind of glean what they need from that, but you can also always email us asking. We get lots of people emailing all the time asking what they need for their skin. But in general, a good place to start for really almost anyone is like golden milk, flower sap, and one of the balms. Those three things cover almost every single base that you need so that your skin's properly cleansed, properly hydrated, and properly protected.
Awesome. So what would you recommend, somebody that has maybe like skin scarring or pigmentation going on, like what might they choose from your website?
Yes. Okay. That's one of the products I forgot to mention. That's thank you. It's called Marmalade. But spelled a little bit funny, with an apostrophe after the L and then AIDE, like help in French. There's little French isms littered throughout the product names. So Marmalade is the vitamin C solid serum that we make. And it has kind of a whole complex of antioxidants that work together, because the vitamin C really works best like when there's also provitamin A, when there's also vitamin E. So it has like that whole kind of package of antioxidants that work well together. And so that's great for post acne hyperpigmentation. It's great for like sunspots. It's great for just boosting overall collagen production. And it's a fat-based balm, so you would still combine it with something like flower sap or alchemist, so that it's really fully absorbed properly. But it's more stable that way compared to like water-based vitamin C serums.
Amazing. Well, that was a lot of information, and we'll be directing people to your website so they could learn more and see what wonderful herbs you have. I know you have like calendula and gotu kola. You also have a lunar lymph product. Maybe you can mention that as well. Talk a little bit about it.
That's one of our masks. That's one of the masks I was talking about, that it's like whole ground herbs and infused oils and butters that are encapsulated. And then if you scoop a little out, you blend it in the palm of your hand with a little bit of water and it becomes like a mousse. That one has herbs in it that are really targeted at encouraging lymphatic flow. So with acne, there's definitely stagnation in the lymph system. So that can be really nice one to just gently get things moving.
All right, awesome. Well, I just placed an order on your website, so I'm super excited to get all those products. I could report back on this episode.
Awesome. I hope you like them.
Yeah. And my last question for you is going to move towards how you've been navigating the challenges that sometimes come from having a small business. And you mentioned like you're passionate about the regenerative aspect of agriculture and keeping good quality products. So what is maybe like your top challenge that you've had to overcome and still like hold on to that vision?
Yeah. I think scaling has been challenging. because I don't want to outsource production. That's been something that I've debated for a long time, and I decided no, I don't want to. So I think access to like production space up where I live in upstate New York is also challenging. I got very lucky in finding the right place finally. I think just all these little pieces between starting as like a small herbalist and becoming like a proper kind of business that's serving people over the world. I think it's just every single part of it has been challenging. But I think the way it works out is because I still find everything very interesting. I think like as long as there's curiosity to balance the stress involved with growing a business like this, I think that's why it continues.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And quick little follow-up questions. I get a lot of questions about like having a GMP compliant supplement or herbal business. So how have you navigated that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, skincare is technically outside of those rules, so that's part of it. However, I still follow all of the actual regulations, myself to a T. And I just try to keep on top of it as much as possible. And because all of our, we're sourcing all of the herbs that we're growing ourselves, like the records are like kind of already there. Like it's never a mystery what this herb is or where it came from or when it was harvested. Like I know where it's from. So, but having access to the new facility that we're manufacturing out of is really great too, because it's the equivalent of like a real commercial kitchen. So.
Yeah. Well, Aviva, I just find your company and your mission so inspiring and so admirable about, everywhere from you keeping the integrity in line and the product quality and knowing the sourcing and having it all done in-house essentially from your own farm. I just think it's so beautiful. And you're doing a wonderful job also educating people on their skin health. So I'd love to do just one more minute of a rapid fire round with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, awesome. So what's the number one advice you have for people in terms of improving their skincare right now?
I think it would be do less, but make sure what you're actually using is right for you. I think, yeah, that's the number one thing is like learn your skin, what your skin needs, not just like following like a TikTok trend.
Yeah, I think keeping it simple is harder than it sounds, but I think it's profound for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, question 2. What is something that you would say to people that are aspiring herbalists or want to have a company that solves for some of these needs that we see in a more natural way?
Yeah, I would say, create based on your own problems and experience. I think people know when things aren't genuine. And I think there has to be a real need for it in the world. So I think there's definitely like limitless possibility for what can be created, but it has to feel authentic and genuine, and people have to be able to connect to it. So I think you have to like kind of be real with yourself about like really what you bring kind of to the world that's special.
I love that. So in this case, we want to strip down and just go inward and see what that core is about. Yeah, I love that. And then finally, a fun little question. What's your favorite hobby or maybe a surprising fun fact about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm also a musician. That's a thing. Long before I was an herbalist, I'm a musician. So I grew up playing violin and learning opera, and now I'm in a rock band with my partner. So we're also like actual musicians who play shows.
Oh, wow. That's something I didn't know before. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't know how you guys find the time between running a farm and a business, but I applaud you.
Thanks.
All right, Aviva. So please tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you and your company and order some herbal products.
Yeah, totally. So I do a lot of posting on Instagram. My handle is apis.apotheca.farm. And in the stories, that's really where I put like little farm updates day to day, what's going on. And our website is apisapotheca.com. And you can always email us at contact@apisapotheca.com if you have questions. And those are the main ways.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, sharing your beautiful company and your wisdom with us. And I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast, and I truly hope you enjoyed the show. If you learned something useful in this episode, please consider giving the show a 5-star rating and a sincere review so that more people can find it, or share it with a friend directly. To get in touch with me, you can find me on social media by looking up my name, Marina Buksov, or email me at marina@rawfork.com. Take good care and see you soon.